I just finished my Jack's Star quilt top using knit together fabric, which is really cute fabric with cats and yarn and buttons and all sorts of fun things in there. And I'm getting ready to quilt it. I went through a lot of decision making of what should I quilt on here? Should I quilt hearts, or should I quilt yarn, or should I quilt cats, or I landed on hearts. Number one, because I have a fun stencil I wanted to play with, and two, there's some really fun heart fabric in here. I thought it would look really great on the quilt. Now, this is an alignable block collection stencil, and it has a center line. So I'm going to have lines of hearts going down my quilt. This quilt, the way it's made, the center of the quilt has a strong center line, so that's my first line in the center. But there is not a center in the border because it's an odd number. So there's one block in the center that I just drew a line in between. I'm going to take my stencil and I'm placing it so the heart stays on the fabric. And this is all approximate. I don't have to pre-mark all of this. Close is actually good enough. And mark a heart. Then I'm going to go about a finger's, it's basically about a centimeter down, and place my next heart. And if it doesn't end up even on the bottom, I'm okay with that. I do not stencil the entire line going down. I stencil 3 or 4 and then quilt and then stencil a few more because the powder will rub off in my hands. This is an ABC circle heart block, circle block stencil from Full Line Stencils, and I use powder to mark with it. This is Pounce powder, and I'm using Barely Blue. This is going to need to wash out of the fabric because it doesn't iron off. You have to wash it off. I could maybe see the white on here with certain light, but it wouldn't show up very well on camera. And if you've never used Pounce before, you want to get that powder agitated in there and swipe it on. You don't bang it on, pounce it on. I decided to use white thread. I have white 50 weight confetti thread in the needle, so it's just a mid-weight white cotton thread. In the bobbin, I'm using an 80 weight polyester thread from Deco Bob. They're both white, but they're different sizes and they're different fiber contents, and that's absolutely fine. The reason I use a thinner bobbin thread is so that I get more yardage on the bobbin and don't change my bobbin as often. Let me grab my Batt Scooters. So I'm going to stitch down to the center of that heart, stitch around the solid side, pause at the point, and then I'm going to stitch back up the side with the swirl in it. And now I'm going to trace that swirl all the way back down to the point. I'm going to stitch down to the beginning of the next heart. And now it's time to mark some more. And you can see here, I've marked from here to here, and this, I now have a seam line going through the whole center part of the quilt, so I didn't need to mark anything. How great is that? And I'll continue stenciling and quilting and stenciling and quilting all the way through the first row. I've just finished stitching that entire column. I can work my way back up to the top. I think it looks really good. I didn't follow the stencil perfectly, and it still looks really good. It's not even my goal to follow the stencil perfectly. It just gives me a guideline of where to go. Now, the way this quilt is divided, the piecing of the quilt, there are 6-inch sections, so these are 3-inch blocks. And so I have used the center line of this and continue my way over with the center lines. So this is about, what, 6 3/4 inches, or this is further. So the center one is going to have a little more space around it, and then I will have these spaced that the centers are every 6 inches going the rest of the way out on the quilt. So I can bring up my stencil again. When I was stenciling this, I considered, do I want to switch every other? They have the swirl on the left, then put the swirl on the right, then put the swirl on the left. And I knew I would lose track of myself, so it's always on the left. But the stencil will let you reverse it. It's not a problem. And then I'm going to continue stitching. Row 2. I am trying to somewhat line up with the one next to it, and I'm just doing that visually. I'm not measuring anything. It's approximate. And now I can grab my Batt Scooters and dig on in to stitch the second column. And I'll continue to mark and stitch all the way down this second column. I finished one row of hearts and then another row of hearts, and there's space in between that I want to fill in now. So I am going to stitch a series of left and right line switchbacks, and I'm measuring them about the depth of this foot here. I do the edge stitching to hold the edges together while I'm there. It makes it so much easier to baste. I finished one line of hearts and then another line of hearts, and then there's this space in between. So I'm going to stitch a series of switchbacks in between, just left and right, and I'm making them about as tall as that foot is tall. It's not going to be perfect spacing, but it gives me a general guideline. This is one of my favorite parts of quilting because it is free motion without thinking. I know how far I'm going to the left, just next to the heart, how far I'm going to the right, just next to the other heart, how far I'm going top to bottom, which is the entire length of the quilt, and each one is the size of this foot, approximately. So I can put a good book on in my ears and just quilt happily for quite some time. I finished stitching a column of hearts, and the switchbacks in between them. I'm going to move over, stitch another column of hearts and the switchbacks, then another column of hearts and the switchbacks, and work my way all the way out to the edge of the quilt. Then I'm going to flip it upside down, rotate it 180 degrees, and stitch the other half of the quilt from the center out the same way.